Hello. So, as you can see in the title of this particular episode, I thought to hit upon two two things that come up when it comes to doing a reading. I do live readings on YouTube, and I also work at a shop and do in-person readings. And so, one thing that I feel is very important is to make it clear to the person who's coming in, uh, looking for a reading, to understand how to phrase a question. Okay, that's the first step into getting some good guidance out of a tarot reading. Usually people come in and I would ask them, so how can I help you? And they just start hitting upon, oh, I got work, I got some issues with my love life, so on and so forth. And I think the best way to approach the first thing, at least for me, is to really think about this particular question. If you do a series of different questions, it's going to be, I feel, a bit challenging for the tarot to really focus on what the issue is. Um, and so I ask the person that I'm reading for to think about all these things. If it's family, if it's yourself, that you're looking for some answers for, if it's work, relationships, so on and so forth, that you're also looking for answers for. Think about what is most important to you when you think about all of these. You have to start prioritizing. And some people are like, well, all of it's important. Not really when you think about it. Really, when you're going into, especially if you're going to be doing a long reading, you want to go in with a set intention. There's something that's really on the top of your list that you really need to get some guidance on. Not all of that, not family, career, yourself, relationships. That's not all on the top of the list. There's an order to it. So I feel the best way to address that is to really look at these things that you are concerned about, but what really holds the most importance to you? Out of all those things that you are thinking about, which is the one right now that when you think about it or you feel about it, it moves you? I tell people it should be like a little twinge in your heart when you think about it, just like, oh, it's it's something that I need to, get some more clearance and understanding from. So that's more or less how I I start the direction of having someone to understand how to phrase a question. Um, Another thing too is because I don't do anything predictive, like, and I mention this when I do my lives, you know, when I'm going to get married, if I'm going to get married, um, am I going to get pregnant, anything like that. Things of that nature are predictive. If I'm going to make a lot, am I going to make a lot of money? Am I going to get this promotion? It puts more of the responsibility, questions like that, on the reader's lap. And so, what we have to avoid is answering questions like that because it could come back to you as a reader from the querent who said, well, you know what, you told me that I was going to get this job on this particular date and it didn't happen. You're not a good reader. You said this was going to happen. We don't know people that we are reading for. We're meeting them, or sometimes we're not. We get emails to do readings. So we don't get that face to face for the most part, unless it's a reading in person. We don't get that kind of connection. We're not part of that person's life. So, and people come in from all different backgrounds. They come from troubled backgrounds. They come from a background that could be successive. Uh, it could be, someone who's just in between phases of their life. We don't know them. So we have to keep our boundaries as readers and not to go over it and get too involved. So when it comes to phrasing these questions, the question should be, and this, as I do this video, this is for suggestions for tarot readers, unless they already have their own style and they want to stick to it. But and for querents who want to know how to phrase a question, think of the question as to what you can do about the situation. Okay, not what you're going to get out of it, but what can you do to change the situation so that it becomes something that is self-empowering for you, something that will be a lesson for you to learn from and to grow from. That's more or less where the tarot is based around. Depending on, what's being asked and the circumstances, this is where we want to direct our querent to understand what can you do about the situation? So if someone comes in and they're leaning on a question like, what's my relationship like with Jay? Okay. So in this case, I could do the reading, but since this querent is asking me about the relationship and this person is part of this relationship, and I'll ask if it's a physical, intimate relationship or if it's someone who's family or business worker, just to get some direction as to where to take the reading. And I'll focus on that energy. And when I get the cards, I read the cards in the manner that this is how the querent can work in the situation. There may be some key points that come up that maybe it's a bit emotionally excessive, or maybe it's a little bit more introverted, like one of the partners isn't really giving in all the way. So when you get a reading like that, like what's my relationship like, I use the reading in a sense for guidance for the querent to change the direction. What can you do on your part to change the energy? Okay, this is your job. This is your question. This is what you need to do. The cards aren't telling you what the relationship needs to do. The relationship is there. We have two people. What's needed is one of these parties needs to take action to either leave the situation or to make changes and maybe put more of this energy into it. So when it comes to something like that, what can the querent do to get a little bit more insight and a little bit more guidance in working in that situation? Okay. So I hope that makes sense. As a reader, we want the querent to understand that this is your job. It's not my job. I could do a reading and it tells me the guidance to do. It's not like I'm going to step into the relationship and go, okay, you know what? I think you need to go out to dinner a little bit more often on Fridays. Fridays looks good from what I see in the readings. Nothing specific. We have to put this energy in the hands of the querent, not for us. Because as I was saying earlier, if we start leaning into readings that are a little bit more predictive, we start taking that responsibility of that person's actions, and that's something that we don't do. If it's a medical question, legal, like what's the outcome of a court case or a legal issue, that is professional guidance. But if someone wants to get some more insight specifically on, let's say, the people involved, this is almost leaning into the next discussion that I want to talk about third-party questions. But if there's a group of people that are involved, and one of these people from this party is coming in and asking, what's going on with this dynamic? with my friends, with my coworkers, and these are people specifically that you are interacting with? That's a solid question, okay? You're asking about your involvement in this role that you have with these people, whether it's work, family, so on and so forth. What is your input? How are you connecting with these people? When a third party question comes in is when someone comes in or goes online and wants to ask about information about someone else's um, business. Okay. So let's say there's a triangle that's involved and you're not really focusing on solving the issue between the two of you. You want to know about that third person that's come in. Okay. That's a third party question that is, in a way, going into that direction of looking into that third person's um, welfare without having that person coming in. Okay. So that's an external influence. And those are readings that I stay clear from. I have to ask questions to make sure that I understand exactly where the querent is coming from. If I feel like it's leaning to more of a, wanting to know more about the other person, I would say have this person come in if they know the person. It's like, what's going on with a celebrity? Okay, that's a third party question. And I think those kinds of questions work best through astrology. Okay. And so with astrology, you could go online, you could see quite a few celebrities, birth chart information. Hopefully it's correct, but we don't know. And get an idea as to why this high profile person has had success in their life and maybe some bumps along the ways. And so astrologically, um, if you have someone who's really good in interpreting charts, we could start seeing the rise and falls of a celebrity status. So I have mentioned in the past that I feel if anyone wants to have something more on the predictive realm and understanding a situation, astrology I feel is the best way because we have time. We have a time that we were born, the placement of where the planets and the sun and the houses where all those uh, placements were placed right at that moment that you were born. And it gives a general uh, life path as to, how you are characteristically. But there's a good chance that if you don't know this third person, um, and especially if it's someone that's challenging, that you feel is a challenge for you or interference, I'm certain you're not going to go up to that person and ask, what time were you born? Where were you born? And then start doing all this or start asking them questions. So third party questions, again, are external influences that a querent is asking about, where they don't have a direct contact or relationship with that person. The only time I feel a third party question is valid is if you specifically are involved, like in a small group, but everyone knows each other, like if it's family. Okay. Now, here's another thing to think about is, let's say it's a family member, okay, that's causing a riff, or you have a question um, about what they're doing, but you don't know them. You don't know them that well. It's a cousin or something like that, someone that you haven't been tight with. Um, that becomes a third party influence because you're going to be going into that person's space energetically for a reading to see what's going on about them. So it's family, and you're wondering why this person is causing an issue, but you have no connection to them. And another thing is, I have to say this straight off the bat. If that person states that they have a connection with that person because it's family, but they really don't, that's a tough call, because we're going to trust what the querent is saying, and just do the reading based on the information that they do have an established relationship. So you have to use, as a reader, you have to use your best judgment when it comes to that. And it also applies online, right? We get all these questions, and for the most part, you can almost tell which questions are more concerning to the querent, and when some are going to be leaning into um, a little bit more outside of the realm, like, asking questions about themselves, how to remedy a situation, how to better themselves, what changes they need to make. You can usually spot those, but for the ones that are being asked outside, like, I want to know more about my neighbor. You know, I think this neighbor is spying on me. What do the cards say? Not going to do it. Not going to do it. And even an astrological chart's not going to help you for that, because you need to have all that information to look into that chart. So, questions like that, go to a psychic, someone that you feel you can trust and is reputable and can maybe answer a question like that. But me personally, and probably a few other tarot readers, would probably stay away from answering those questions. So the reason this got me thinking is I came across this video by Christiana Gaudet on YouTube, who put up a video, and I have the link of it, how to answer third-party questions. And some of my answers that I just stated here, I lean in her favor. You have to be careful and make sure that you're not crossing anyone's boundaries. And in that case, whenever someone comes in for a reading, the reading has to be about them exclusively, not about a coworker that you don't know about, even though you're in the same environment. But if there's a rift going on and you don't know that person, that becomes a spiritual ethic issue. And again, third-party question, you're going into that zone of doing a reading for someone that this person doesn't know about, the person being the querent. So we have to be mindful of that. And the same goes for phrasing a question. I think when a querent comes in, and it's also up to the experience of a tarot reader, and there's going to be mistakes. We're going to have some questions slip by, and we're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, but catch it next time. Make sure you have like a disclaimer, a release form saying that you're not held responsible for anything that happens. It's very important. I have a paragraph when I do my live readings stating that any outcome that may or may not happen from this reading is entirely up to the querent. You have that free will. Free will is a big word for me. You have that choice to determine how you are going to handle and moderate, I guess, the question that you're going to move through. So you have to watch your actions, watch your thoughts after doing a reading. You could take everything from a reading, or you could take part of it, or you could take nothing from it. It's entirely up to the querent to walk away with some sort of answers. And if they want to apply it to what's going on with them, great. If they don't, that's their call. As a tarot reader, we can only go so far. We have our limits, and And if there's questions and this happens, especially when you have a querent who's really trying to find answers, trying to find a definitive answer. And that's pretty hard to come through with the tarot. You can sometimes get strong guidance. Answers, the word answer and guidance, two different things. Okay. Answers is just that. You do a reading and it ends up being something predictive. It's like, yes, you're going to fall off the sidewalk because of the cards that came out, maybe tower and something else. Guidance is a way of seeing things at a larger spectrum, okay, and seeing the picture more for what it is. And then if there's some key cards that come out, based on how the reading is feeling for me, I will express it and point it out, sometimes emphatically to a querent. Like if I feel really strong energy coming from from 2 or 3 cards, I go, you know what, pay attention to these cards. I'm just feeling like this is something that you need to be aware of and work with it. Okay. And I'll answer any questions. So that's where the guidance comes in. No answers. So there are times when I do these live readings where I'm not answering the question directly. I'm not giving the answer that the querent wants to hear. And that's where, again, I feel phrasing the question and understanding it as a querent and also getting clarification from the tarot reader's perspective that both of those grounds are covered and it's understood. Because if you go ahead and do a reading kind of thinking that you understand what's going on, the reading may not come out the way that the querent is expecting, and let alone what not that you're expecting anything, but it may not turn out in the direction of where what's being asked is being providing clear guidance. So we have to make sure there's that understanding. And if there's, as a reader, if there is a question or if you're getting a reading that's just not clear, you have that right to stop the reading. Okay. And what you want to do monetarily wise, that's entirely up to you. But I'm just going to sort of go off a little bit off of the subject of phrasing questions and third-party questions. Is, as a reader, if you feel that there is something not coming from this reading, you're just not getting it, and there's going to be those days. People who've been reading for a long time, we have to take care of ourselves. There's a term that I've seen, spiritual hygiene. We have to keep ourselves clear. And if you feel that you're having a hard time with a reading, don't force it. Just tell the querent, it's like, you know what, I'm having a hard time with this reading. I'm just not getting the answers. Okay. And if it's a live reading, if it's going to be, free or whatever, then that's it. Just say, I can't really answer this question. And it's not because you don't want to, it's just that your space energetically for doing this particular reading is just not coming to you. Okay. And this could vary. This is an example of energy exchange, even through the internet. You could sometimes feel that energy being transferred through a question if you're that sensitive. I could sometimes pick up on energy through a question. I can't even explain it. I could just feel when something feels really good, or if something is off. And so when you feel those energies as a tarot reader, we have to be careful not to let our own feelings overwhelm. But going back to what I was saying, if you're doing a reading and you're feeling that you just can't get it, that you're not getting answers, you have that right to stop the reading. And in this case, I would say no charge or whatever the situation is. Because sometimes when you get a reading like that, it's energy that you're picking up from the other person. They're not being fully open to the reading. And so that sometimes plays plays a part when you're interpreting a reading. It's like, how come I can't get through this? And you glance up at the person that you're doing the reading for, and it could be the energy coming from them as well, but also from you. So if you feel you can't do a reading entirely, whether live or with the person being there, just express it. It's better than just faking it, um, and going through with the reading and just giving them some answer, especially if it's an answer that doesn't even go in the direction of what they're asking. That doesn't fit well. So that's one thing that I would do, in a situation like that. When I'm reading in person, it is really important that I get clarity so that I don't have something like that. But it can happen. And if you're stuck, another thing that you can do if to continue on with the reading, maybe pull those cards back into the deck, shuffle, and explain to the person that you're doing the reading for. It's just like, something's not right. Let me just pull some more cards. Sometimes it takes another shuffle, okay? And to get the cards, and then you'll start getting a direction towards what's being asked, okay? But again, get clarity, um, as a tarot reader with the querent, so you can make sure that when you're doing your reading, all that energy that you're putting into it is clear and that you understand. If there's any uncertainty on either sides, either the querent or the tarot reader, I wouldn't do the reading, because this person's coming to you and asking you to do a reading. You want to be present. You want to be grounded, and you want to be focused. So that's very important. I see some questions too that people ask, how do you keep your energy going when you're doing readings? You see me when I do my lives, and even when I record things like now. Lots and lots of water. Keep yourself hydrated. Don't do anything that has a lot of caffeine that can either amp you up or drain you. Keep yourself hydrated. I'm drinking during all my readings when I do readings in person and also live. I take a break. Make sure that you're using the restroom. Okay, make sure that you're releasing all of that toxin. Make sure you have a good meal too. Make sure that you're strong, and also take a break. Take a break. When I do my live readings, especially when they're going like over 2.5 hours, I need to stop, take a break, use the bathroom, whatever. Just take a minute just to like stop talking, and then take care of yourself for a few minutes, 5-10 minutes. Usually for someone who's new to doing this, especially when they're doing a lot of readings, they'll feel the draining effect um, a lot sooner. But the more that you read, um, like consistently, you start building a tolerance. And so you'll find yourself, as time goes on, as long as you ground yourself and you take care of yourself, you'll find yourself having to maybe not have to rest up as long, because your mind, your body, your spirit is all it's getting conditioned in a sense to start doing this um, on a steady, regular basis. I think the longest that I've done readings was probably about, with a little break in between, was probably 4 hours. And by the time I was done reading, because my shift was for about 5 hours, I was amped up. I couldn't stop. I had like this increase of energy. It was very interesting. I had this increase of energy because I took those breaks, and then I had a long run until my time was done, and then I couldn't stop. I was amped up. So if some of you readers feel like that, if you guys feel like you have so much energy afterwards, walk it out if you can. Bring yourself down. Spiritually bring yourself down. Get yourself grounded. Start breathing. Not that you're not, but breathe to exhale all that excess energy out. And that may take some time. It may take like a half hour, or depending on where your body is, it may take a little bit longer. So bring yourself down, get yourself focused to where you're calm and your mind isn't like spinning, like the chatting monkeys, all of this. You're taking all this energy from being online and reading in person, and it gets to you. And so we have to take care of ourselves in that way. And I feel also too, after you're done doing a reading, and this also applies to the querent, especially if it's an intense reading, do the same. Do this almost similar to what tarot readers do, but do it more in a meditative way. Take the information that you've received and put it in a way that you can actually process, because you're sitting there at the table or you're online and you're listening. You're putting all this energy into what's being told, and you're looking at cards and you're listening to the person who's doing the reading. You have all of these senses that are amped up because they're, you're getting some answers, or you're getting, not answers, I correct myself, you're getting guidance in a direction of a part of your life that means a lot to you and could also influence what's going to happen. So you're taking all this, it's maybe anxiousness, excitement, and when you come away from a reading, you can feel drained as well. So just probably ground yourself as the querent. Ground yourself before you go into a reading. If you go into a reading that's really emotional, that you're very emotional, you're either angry or you're sad intensely, it's going to come across in the reading. Okay. And sometimes that's hard to control, but if you can expel some of that energy and just remain focused, and depending on who you're reading with, they could probably help you if they sense that your energy is a bit intense, to maybe get the querent in a space where they can be calm and somewhat focused and have some clarity when it comes to answering their questions. So there are many different ways of doing this, but also, again, when working with a querent as a tarot reader, you don't want to give too much of yourself. And that's something that I am working on, because I pull so much information from just a small amount of cards, from 1 card to 3 to 8, 10, whatever, especially the larger amount of cards. That's a lot of work, energy-wise, to put into a reading. So as a reader, we have to respect our energy levels, especially when we're doing consecutive readings. So those are some tips, some pointers to kind of be aware of, is going back as the querent. Think about your question in a way that you can turn the question as to not you and someone else, but what you can do to get some direction in this situation. So best way, for example, is let's say I'm having an issue, or you're having an issue with someone at work, and this is someone that your boss, someone that you consistently interact, so you are exchanging energy in that sense. So you can feel and get an idea of who that person is, as opposed to a third-party question where you haven't interacted with that person. You don't know who they are, but you want to know something about them. That's a third-party question involving someone else, not you. So going back, so you want to know why there's a challenge going on, or what's the issue between you and and your boss or a coworker that you are exchanging contact with. So the best way to word that is, what can I do to gain clarity, to gain guidance into this stressful situation that I'm feeling very, very imbalanced? What can you do? And then the tarot reader would hear the question, maybe ask a few questions to clarify it, and then start pulling cards. So again, turn the question so you become, I like how Christine Gaudet put this, and I think a few other readers have said this, is that you are placed in the seat of power, the querent. What can you do to change this so that it benefits yourself in that situation and the person that you're interacting with? What can you do? You're put in the place of empowerment. How do you use that empowerment to take care of that situation? It's the best way to answer a question in that sense. So yeah, that's some insight. I'm happy I did this to address some of the questions and some of the issues when it comes to phrasing a question. And about third-party questions, because I think there's that blurred line about what is a third-party question, and I touched upon that. It's someone that is not part of, isn't involved in your life, isn't that influence, and that's prying into someone else's life when you're asking about someone else. So this energy needs to be exchanged between the querent and the other person that you are asking about, because when you have that energy exchange, an energy exchange means having a relationship, a friendship, connection between you and this person or a small group of people, because you're getting that energy, you're understanding or you're not understanding that person based on their thoughts, their actions, and you need some clarity on that. And you can bring up key examples from this, of this other person that's involved. But again, you have to be in that situation. So questions about a relationship is valid as long as you are in a relationship with that person. If a querent comes in to a reading saying that they're in a relationship with this person and they're not, and they're just trying to get information, again, that's a tough call. Unless there is a reader who can just sense that this person is not in a relationship with this person, just based on the cards. But that takes skill, okay? Because you could be getting contradicting cards that are just like, I don't understand this. This doesn't make sense. And you don't want to call the querent out, especially if they're paying you for this service. You don't want to say, hey, you know what? I don't think you're in a relationship with this person, because you don't want to, you don't want to open up that Pandora's box. So express what you feel when you feel like something just isn't right, as I mentioned earlier, and just say, I can't do this reading, especially if it's really strong. If it feels like this person isn't being honest, I'd rather just stop the reading and just, give them the money back, or just say, hey, I'm sorry, I can't do this reading. And you explain why. So there's, again, nothing wrong with that. So I love to hear your thoughts for those who are tarot readers that have been doing this for a while, on YouTube, or, they've been doing readings at events for quite some time. And I'd like to get some feedback as to how you approach these situations. If you have anything to share when it comes to working with the querent and, phrasing questions and answering those outside questions that really isn't directed to what the querent wants to know about. So leave in the comments, and I have a website. You're more than welcome to look at it. I do readings, of course, and I have all my social media, which really isn't too much, linked below. I do live readings once a week on YouTube, so please check in. I usually do them once a week, either Wednesday or Thursday. So please check in for that. They are donation optional, but donation is appreciated. And I think that's it. I put videos in at least twice a week, so I always have some kind of content coming in. I don't edit, so feel free just to scroll through the videos if you want to jump ahead. The only time I'll timestamp a video is if I'm breaking something into sections in a long discussion or a long explanation of something. Those are the only times I would timestamp, but for the most part, you're going to get me with all my tongue slips, my hiccups, me doing this to fix my hair. This is who I am. So look forward to hearing from you. Internet-wise, being in contact with you. And until next time, you take care. And again, any questions you have or any comments, leave them down below. Feel free to subscribe as well. Appreciate that as well. Thank you again.